What's going on? This is Devil Fred. Welcome back to another video. Now, in today's video, we got another top 5 video, and this is my opinion, the top 5 strongest Bankais in Bleach. Now, of course, this is all predominantly all about the manga because that's when we see more of these characters, Bankais. So if you haven't read the manga, I would advise you, to not watch it if you don't want to get anything spoiled. But it's not like I'm spoiling anything crazy, game changing about it. I'm just telling you about the characters Bankais. But with all that out the way, let's get straight into this video. Starting off with number 5. Now this might shock a few, but it's more reasonable. Being the MC himself, being Ichigo Kurasaki's true Bankai Tentan Zangetsu. Now the reason that Ichigo comes in at number 5, and honestly Ichigo could very much be either number 1, 2, or anything relatively higher than 5, let's say. Because I was honestly about to leave Ichigo off the list, but because of potential was the only reason I left him on the list, and that's mainly because Ichigo's Bankai to Yhwach was quoted as too dangerous. The second Ichigo, as you see on the panel on the screen right now, the left one, the second Ichigo released Tentan Zangetsu, the right panel is exactly what Yhwach did. He went and used Almighty and changed the future, and he broke Ichigo's Bankai. He said that himself that would have been too much to deal with. So if Yhwach, who can literally, as I just said, predict the future, let alone change it, is scared of this Bankai, it has some serious potential. And that's why it has to come in at this list. I wish it could be higher, but sadly right now it can't. Now coming in at number 4, which is also a very manga canon character, is Ichibe. Ichibe is the captain of the Zero Division, basically the head of them. And if you don't know, the Zero Division is the squad that protects the Soul King. Now Ichibe's Shifu, I'm sorry, I'm gonna try not to butcher these are kind of hard to pronounce. Shirinfa, oh my god, these are hard, man. Sorry. Shirufe Ichimonji, I think I pronounced that a little bit better. But yeah, basically this Bankai takes whatever Ichibe had that was already covered in black, and he basically controls it in a very unique way. Like, I'm gonna use the one he used on Yhwach as an example. Yhwach had black on him. Ichibe claims to control the color black. He basically has the ability to now give anything that has that ink on it a new name. So he basically turned Yhwach, who's this OP character, into the power of a black ant. So he basically flat out just made Yhwach as weak as an ant. So, this is a pretty broken Bankai, because as long as his Shikai, and it's his Shikai that's the paintbrush, his Shikai is the paintbrush which covers things in ink, and then once he releases, no, I take that back. Actually, yes it is. Okay, I take that back. Yes, that's the same thing. Now, if his Shikai or Bankai, they both can let off ink, but in his Bankai, once he releases that, which he doesn't call it that because since he's been up top so long, they don't usually call it Bankai, which he stated in the panel to the right. Basically, yeah, he can now give anything that this ink has touched a new name, which is so broken in my opinion. But yeah, that's Ichibe's Bankai. Now moving on to number 3. Alright, so now moving on to number 3, we have one of my favorite characters named Shunsui Kuraku and his Bankai. Now, let me try not to butcher this one, but I think I got this one. Katen Kyoku Kamamatsu Shunju. Yes, I got that one that time. Alright, so now this Bankai was originally supposed to be number 4. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I just messed up the recording and I am too lazy to go back and re-record it. So either way, both of them are very close. I don't mind putting this one at 3 neither. So basically what Shunsui's Bankai is it basically plays challenging games just as his Shikai does. Because we all know Shikais and Bankais are always relative to each other. Now, Shunsui's Bankai basically takes his child games and put them into acts. So the first act is basically a shared power. Shared wounds. So now basically the first act is, and it's 4 acts. The first one bases off, now each user shares the same amount of wounds with his opponent. So if Shunsui was to slice his opponent's arm, his arm will get sliced, and vice versa. So how many ever wounds they put on each other will get inflicted on the other. Then once the second stage comes, his opponent basically now gets a lot of black dots put on them, and they start bleeding profoundly, and it messes with their head basically. And then The third stage, basically they both get engulfed into a huge drainage of water, and now it's a battle of Ryatsu, and whose Ryatsu will drain first, which more than half of the time it's always going to be the opponent, because Shunsui's Bankai is designed around something that he would know, so he wouldn't lose his Ryatsu when trying to drown. He would know how to keep it stable since it's his Bankai. Unlike the opponent, who's probably never been in a situation like this, the Ryatsu is going to plummet and they're going to begin to drown. And once they do that, then that's when stage 4 comes and Shunsui gets a free one-shot kill, which he basically decapitates his opponent. Which just off that already shows how broken this Bankai is. Now, the only reason I said it was supposed to be originally at 4 is because this Bankai has to go through the stages to get to the one-shot, which isn't it makes it a very strong Bankai because it has a one-shot, and even getting through the stages are pretty intense, but it's the simple fact that you have to get through stages to get your Bankai to be as broken as it's supposed to be, which slightly can be, a little underwhelming, but nonetheless it's still a very impressive Bankai. Now moving on to number 2. Now coming in at number 2 becomes my favorite character in the show, Kisuke Udahar, and his Bankai, Kananbaraki Berehime Atarame. Now this Bankai, in my opinion, is probably the most versatile and the most useful Bankai of all. It might not be the flat out strongest, but I mean it's number 2, so how much weaker can it be to number 1? But it is an extremely impressive Bankai, which basically it's like one of those things that literally can do it all. Kisuke Udahar's Bankai basically is evolved around reconstruction. Berehime basically begins to reconstruct anything that anything that he needs. So, as in the fight, let's use the one in the manga, he was going against Askin. Askin decided to get rid of Kisuke's eyes. Once he activated Bankai, he was able to restructure and reopen up his eyes. At one point in time, he was able to restructure his hand to the point where he could physically punch harder. And then he was also able to reconstruct and open up what it looked to be like a portal for Grimmjow to come through and end up finishing off Askin. And basically that also leads to me to believe that it can do so much more that we just weren't able to see, because if he can amp his strength, physical strength with his Bankai, that means that it's no way I can believe that he can't amp his speed, his jumping ability, and anything other of the sorts of things like that, because it's like such a versatile Bankai. And the fact that he can reconstruct anything, this Bankai, it almost seems limitless because of anything that is happening. Like if your leg gets cut off, Kisuke can now restructure it. He can, like I said with the whole thing with Grimmjow, he can open up portals. He opened up an entire and started to restructure Askin's entire arm to make him weaker and basically allow some other stuff to go through. It was so much going on in the panel. It was just way too impressive on Kisuke's behalf. His Bankai is by far my favorite and a top tier Bankai, but sadly it just doesn't match up to number 1. Alright, and then number 1, you probably guessed it if you've been watching Bleach or anything like that. It's going to be Head Captain Yamamoto and his Bankai, Zakano no Tachi. Now basically this Bankai is absolutely broken to the extent of it. It's the pinnacle of Bankais. This is why he was stated to have the strongest Zanpakuto of all. Let me tell you about Yamamoto's Bankai. So his Bankai is also kind of broken up like Shunsui's, but the difference is he can use his all at whenever he wants. It's broken up, instead of Act 1, 2, 3, and 4, his is broken up in South, East, North, and West. Basically, let's go from East. East basically starts off, as you can see in this image right here, where his sword is smoking. That's basically what his Bankai is doing. Basically, nothing on that sword neither burns nor erupts. But basically, what happens is if anything touches it, it is eradicated to nothing. It is the ultimate defense when coming up to someone. So basically, he has an immaculate defense. Anybody who swings swords at him, their sword's just gonna absolutely get eradicated. It's gonna get destroyed, which is absolutely broken. Now we're gonna talk about West. West is the ability that's probably the most broken of them all. Basically, West activates immediately on release, and basically what it does is it ups Yamamoto's body temperature to 15 million degrees, and that is not an exaggeration. That is what it was stated to be. And the also crazy thing is Yamamoto held himself back and engulfed all the flames into his own body, which the heat was now at that point in time 15 million degrees. Had Yamamoto let those flames out and he didn't care, it would have probably been much higher of a number. And basically, it was so hot in the Soul Society, it began to make people's throats dry. It made Shunsui's eye, who had been recently destroyed, it made it start bleeding again out of the blue. It made it to a point where people, like I said, couldn't breathe. The water was being evaporated up. It was so hot in the Soul Society that Yamamoto had Yhwach, not his clone at least, had not finished him off, that he would have begun to like genuinely start to kill people. He would have probably destroyed the Soul Society at the rate he was going. It was ridiculous. And it's so hot that you can't even see the flames on him. Like, it just, they don't even take the form of flames. Like, it's that hot. Now, moving on to South. South basically is another really OP ability. Like, this one and West are neck and neck for most OP. Basically, Yamamoto puts the tip of his sword on the ground, and now anyone that has been killed by Yamamoto's, whether Shikai or Bankai, now he brings them back from the dead and they fight on his behalf. Like, come on, how much more broken can you get than that? Like, that's ridiculous. You basically have zombies fighting on your side, and then you're already a broken character like Yamamoto, so you already know it's ridiculous. Now, finishing off with North. North is the simplest ability of them all. It's just a slash that's concentrated with fire, heat, which basically incinerates anything that it touches. It's OP, but simple. You know, anything that it touches, it gets incinerated. So, and it basically is out of existence. All of Yamamoto's abilities, except from West, basically, and South, I guess you could say, East and East and North, basically are eradicating people out of existence. It's ridiculous. So yeah, excuse me, I apologize. So yeah, that's gonna wrap up this video right here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you've read the Bleach manga and you know about these Bankais, let me know if you disagree, agree. Who would you put in? Who would you take out? Let me know, because I think these are, in my opinion, the top 5 strongest Bankais in the show. But I know there are always people who are out there ready to disagree. So leave it down in the comment section below, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.